Hello, what's up, everybody? How are you doing? What's up, chat? What's up, Behemoth Monkey, and anybody else joining us so far? And before I get started here, welcome to the episode 3 of The Last Mile. And thank you, N. Wood, Mr. Gig Geezer, for joining me today. I feel like it's forever since I've seen you. Maybe
Yeah,
maybe just hours or something. I don't know.
something like that.
But yeah.
Is that
thank you
me
for joining
echoing
me.
or is that you?
Are you hearing an echo?
Yeah.
I don't hear it. You
There we
still
go.
hearing it?
No,
Oh, okay.
I think that's better. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming on again. I appreciate
Thanks.
that. I think that I think we even last night we were talking about this, and I think this is when I first started this show, I was thinking maybe once a month I'd do it, and then I decided weekly because I think that a lot of people need to start looking at this space. There are more. I was thinking about this today. There are more options in the last mile space than there are in food delivery, rideshare, and shopping altogether.
You're right. You're right.
I mean, and the difference being also that almost every one of the apps, they might be like some Amazon Flex and Roadie are also going to be included in these last mile apps that we talk about. But I got to say that those two aside, most of the apps, I mean, I know Curri has a wait list. I don't consider that oversaturated. Most of these apps, like there's more than any of the other apps, like I just said, but most of them have work for you. It's not like it's so oversaturated you're not going to get work. In your market to market, each are different. Some apps aren't even in certain markets, but there's some things that we can go through that there's listing boards like we were talking about yesterday, and there's websites, and there's things that you don't get on a traditional app where you can still go pick up this type of work. So I think once you get one of these apps under your belt, you're going to be a lot better off feeling more confident to take some of those website jobs or whatever, because you're going to start seeing the pay and noticing, well, wait a minute, that's 300 or that's 3 times what I'm making. And like I've said before on this show already since the beginning, is this show isn't about let's try and pick apart how we can work this app better because it's getting out of hand. It's more about you guys get over here, get over to the last mile side of things, because if you're out here to make money, that's what this show's about, making money. That's what I'm here to do. I know that's what you're here to do.
Absolutely.
I'm
what
not
it's all about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not out there to and again, and I think one thing we'll touch on today that we touched on a little bit before too, but is miles, because I think we really need to get into that a little bit with people. Some people get it, and I think others need to just hear it to understand it. But welcome everybody in the chat and those who are watching in replay. Again, I just saw some other people join. What's up, Roy? What's up, Xander? What's up, Giggity? Thank you guys for joining us, and thank you any people who are not chatting and working and just listening. So I think this show will have a lot to bring to you guys. It's in its infancy. It's just getting started. But each week we'll be talking about last mile apps. It won't just be Curri. It won't just be the others. We'll be talking about Curri, Amazon Flex, Dispatch, Veho, Freight, Roadie, Bungie, and many others. I mean, I counted like 23 apps and then infinite websites and listing boards. So this space is it's still very much profitable for anybody who wants to do it. And for those who say, like, I know Geezer, you were on one time when I had Dana on, he drives a Prius and he does great with Curri. I hear some people say it's the size of the car. Well, of course it is. I mean, if you have a box truck, you're going to make more than if you have a van. If you have a van, you're going to make more than if you have an SUV. If you have a Prius or an SUV, you're going to make more than if you have a Prius. Right. But but there's work to be had for all levels of vehicles, and they all pay better. All of them pay better.
Right. Yeah. Instead of that rare large order program opportunity, you've got I mean, when you start making what you can make on a consistent basis, you're not going to be all jumping up and down, making a big deal out of a DoorDash large order program opportunity. It's going to be, oh, okay. And then let me get them back over here where I can make some more money. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's great. People like Flex showcase some of how the large order program can really help you out. But the way I see that is like not you're not going to get 100 large order program orders in a day.
No. You may get. I've had as many as 5 in a day, and
Right.
that was before DoorDash start, jacking around with the algorithm and all. I mean, yeah, 5 is probably the most I've had. I mean, I had like Monday night, I had 2. Those are the only 2 orders I accepted. Those are the only 2 orders I saw, but they just happen to be large order programs. That's a rarity. That's a rarity to catch your only 2 in their large order program opportunities.
And I know, I mean, one of the great things about the large order program, I will say this, I mean, because I'm not just all the time dogging on the other apps. There is money to be made. And the way that I view it is, for me now, is I have my dumpling thing I'm trying to build. I have these last mile apps, but then I still have all the other apps. I have DoorDash,
Right.
Uber Eats, Grubhub, Rideshare. It's just those are way farther down the list of what I'm optimizing.
Right.
If I'm using those apps, something happened or something's not happening on the courier end of things.
Right.
That day.
Right. And that's kind of my strategy. That really is. I'm looking more so last mile first priority, then the gig food delivery apps as second priority. And then there's some days it is my A priority. But when I go out every day, I'm looking for the last mile opportunities first.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the nice things is seeing them the night before too. But it's so we were even talking yesterday about how some people gauge their hours. That some people count their hours as their active hours. That's how many I worked in a week. We can just agree, everybody, to disagree, but I truly, I mean, from my point of view, your total hours are the hours you worked. Active means nothing. I think that's more just trickery for your mind from the apps to make it look like, oh, in 40 hours you made this much, but really you need to look at that other hour.
Right. Actually, and I've pointed something out like this many uploads ago. When you look at the sites like Indeed and the other employment websites, they count your online hours as the actual working time, as opposed to the actual time. So, again, I agree with you. That's more of a mind game thing. You just but then again, it just could be where people just don't know.
Sure.
And so it's my responsibility, it's your responsibility, and the responsibility of others to actually give correct information.
And that's what one thing I always try and do here. And I always say to people, listen, one thing about this podcast or any of the shows that I do, my audio podcast, is that long before the audio or I started YouTube or any of this, 6 years plus ago now, I started Uber Lyft Drivers, which is now Rideshare Rodeo, and it's daily news articles posted. So anything I'm talking about can go be referenced there. That's a big difference from a lot of creators. A lot of creators, they might be speaking correctly, but they usually don't have pre-footnoted articles that are like, okay, if you want to see, it's right here. It's like they'll just talk about it. And are they describing it exactly correct? That's why I always say go check out the article, because maybe you'll read it differently than me. Maybe you'll even question me. And I am not somebody who, if I'm wrong, won't admit it. I will absolutely admit it. But I get all my information before I bring it here from these articles, and I repost them. But then I put my spin on it. Then I put my take on it. And I tell that to people that this is my opinion on the facts. But I also bring the facts out. I think that's a big thing. For people to know, make sure, I guess it's like right now we're in tax season. Make sure if you're taking tax advice, you're getting it from somebody that knows what they're talking about. I mean, this is one of the most important things I see on YouTube. I see everybody making tax advice. I don't watch all of them because Marissa's a tax accountant. So if I have a question, I just go to her.
You got it made right there.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I do watch some, and some of the things people are saying, and I'm not going to single anybody out, but are 100%, 180 degrees wrong.
Right.
They're telling you if you do, and I'm like, no, you can't do that. And so if you are taking like tax advice, make sure you're getting it from people or that really know what they're talking about. And I kind of view that way for everything on YouTube, to be honest.
Well, I always say my experience as a newspaper reporter. I mean, I know that reporters rank down there with politicians, attorneys, and car salesmen. But all I can tell you is that I was in the business for roughly 15 years. That's my formal background. I come from a different generation of people in the media, and it was instilled in me to know what you're talking about. Always question the facts, challenge the facts,
Yeah.
and make every effort to corroborate your information as opposed to just running out there. And so when I've come out with a lot of the stuff that I have come out with here on YouTube, it's because I've done some homework. It's not like I just come out and just talk shit just to be talking.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if I have like an open stream, Gary and I used to, over the summer, we did a Sunday fun day. That was kind of just, we would just wing it. And so sometimes we got into actual gig stuff, but we always said, listen, this hasn't been researched. We're just coming up with some ideas here. So we, at least it's different. It's okay if you preface it by, this isn't a fact, but hey, I got an opinion on this. Or it's in your own words, somehow you're making it to be known that it's just opinion, because that's a big difference. A lot of people, because I think that a lot of creators need to realize people are watching you and believing you. So what you say is very important to be true. And going back to your, that you came from more of a traditional media. And I think I want to say, and maybe you'll correct me on this, but the media has never been perfect, but it was, when you were doing it, it was not the corruption level it is now.
No, it was not, at least when I started out. Towards the end of the time I was in the newspaper business, I began to see that. And obviously it's gotten worse as media has gone from print, primarily print or predominantly print, to social media, pretty much just social media now. I mean, you forget electronic, it's gone from one end to another end now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because people talk about like clickbait videos, but really, like these days, when I'm looking through news, it's funny because I've finally noticed the tie there. It's like every news article is clickbait to get you into the article.
Right. Now, here's something that a former colleague of mine has shared with me. At least the traditional media outlet like newspapers, they've been trying to figure this out for the last 25 years, how to monetize what they're doing. They still haven't figured out how to maximize the search engine optimization part. They're still trying to figure it out. So that just goes to show you that this is it's not an exact science. That's probably the easiest way of saying it.
No. And also one thing that's happened is, I know many of us have probably at one point or another added ad blocker to your Google browser so that you can get through some of the paywalls on some of these newspapers. They've gotten pretty advanced now. I get to a lot of newspapers. I mean, my local one, the Denver Post, they want to charge me a subscription.
Right.
It's like, and every paper I read wants to charge me a subscription. Well, guess what? I'm not going to pay 30 subscriptions to get some news. Like, you guys got to start consolidating. And like saying you get these 10 papers for $4.99 a month, like it's gotten a bit outrageous.
There was something that is, for whatever it's worth, this is before internet became what it was back in the mid 1990s. There was something called view text. And there were a number of newspapers that subscribed into this service, and only newspapers could see it though. But you can pull stuff from another newspaper. It's not like the Associated Press wire. This was actually kind of like its own little intranet, so to speak, where you had like the Richmond Times-Dispatch, which is where I worked at, and then you had a couple other newspapers, like a handful of other newspapers that all subscribed into this intranet, and you were able to access that way. But there was no monetization of it. It was just among those newspapers. But that's kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah, and there's like the Chicago Tribune and the Miami Herald and the Denver Post and a lot of others that are owned by one company. So why wouldn't they just sell you the one subscription? I do want to point this up. What's up, Rick? How are you doing? And what's up, Tim Gigwise? How are you? Thank you, Hannibal, very much. And I think this is a congratulations to you. And I gotta say the same thing, man. Your channel growth has been pretty phenomenal,
Yeah, thanks.
Well, it has been interesting to watch. Not a lot of channels like blow up. You know, like I was looking through and like your videos are getting like sick views. You got like a lot of new subscribers, and I'm
Yeah,
guessing a portion of it's the van, like the
yeah, I
moving to the
think
cargo
so.
van, but it's not all of it. It's also the content you're putting out. And you put out a lot of your videos. I watch them, but I know that a 20, 22-minute video scares some people off. Not me, because I want to see the
Mhm,
content. But to
mhm.
me, the fact that you're putting out those length of videos and people are watching them in that kind of masses tells me that you're doing something very right.
Well, thanks.
So I
Thanks. That's
know.
all I can say is thanks, y'all, because I can think back to this time last year where I had just 70 subscribers. And
Wow.
going into like this November, December, I had maybe 500, 600 subscribers. So I
Wow.
think though that really the cargo van thing getting really kind of I got in at the right time with the
Yeah.
cargo van. If you just look strictly YouTube, but then again, all I will say is that I've tried to stick to the main goal of informing and educating people. Whatever the topic is, that's what I've been trying to do.
But and I think that's something for people to take away from this, though, too. There's other people that Hannibal and I on Beyond the Algorithm and myself or Hannibal himself and other people we've talked to that are in this space that have vans. All the van channels are pretty big right now because, again, there's enough work on these apps for everybody. And on the
Mhm,
other apps that we're all used to, there isn't enough work.
mhm.
You know, it's beyond what I call beyond saturation. I mean,
Well,
they've
or
got 100 times too many people on the road on every one of these apps.
yeah, well, I call it hypersaturation. You mentioned about road warrior Rick. I want to answer your question real quick, man. Um, uh, PT Cruiser, at least on most of the last mile apps, is okay. Now there may be some apps out there that do have an age restriction, but a PT Cruiser will work on Roadie. It would work on Curry. At
Yep.
least those first two that come to mind. Dispatch, uh,
Should be
Freight.
good on freight. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So point pickup.
Point
So
pickup,
yes,
Amazon Flex.
yeah. Amazon Flex. Mhm.
I mean,
If it can run, you can. If you can run, you can make money with it.
yeah, I mean, to be honest, most of the apps will take you. How many offers will you get from them? I don't know. Like freight, I've been on freight for a while, and I always say this. I've actually had a couple of great runs for freight. I just don't get a lot of offers in my market from freight.
Mhm.
And I guess that's because a lot of freight stuff is probably for bigger vehicles like yours, like a Sprinter van.
I don't know. I mean, in my market, freight is can be for a car.
Right. No.
In
Yep.
my market though, it's been mostly it's been primarily or yeah, tire distributorships. There are three of them in my market, and just depending on the size of the tires, will kind of differentiate who may get that offer. I mean, if you get the big old Bubba tires, well, a Prius ain't going to get it, especially if they're looking for a set of Bubba tires. But I have heard the story where a lady had her kid in a car and she made multiple trips to make it happen. So it depends.
Yeah. No, I've to be honest, I'm gonna be honest with you. I've never heard of, I never thought that the tire size mattered.
Yes. Yeah.
I
I mean,
mean,
those.
it should. It makes sense to me what you're saying, but I've never really, because all the apps have accepted me and let me be on, and most of them don't ask you about your tires.
Well, I'll put it like this: those tires are also and can be heavy too. So
Right.
keep
Are
that
you
in
saying?
mind.
But are you saying that they know that a PT Cruiser can only have X size wheel? Like, so they're not asking you what size wheel it is, but they just know that car's not perfect for.
Well, that would be like on a roadie app. Okay,
Okay.
if roadie yeah is another app that may handle a tire distributorship in my market. They will say this should be an extra large vehicle. It would be considered extra large, and they'll say that it should be an SUV or a truck or a van
Mhm.
or box truck, something larger than a Prius.
Right. Right. But like my SUV, I don't know how much bigger my tire is than a lot of some of these cars out there.
Hmm.
I don't think I'm running that much bigger of a tire than most.
Uh-huh.
I just
Well,
like you, I know my weight distribution. Like we were talking about this yesterday. Like you said, you can, I think it was up to 4,000 pounds, but you only carry like up to 2,700 or something.
Yeah, 2,750, and that's by choice.
Right. And that's kind of how I am. My car can handle more, but I have
Mhm.
my limits right around, even if I'm stacking a couple of Curries or whatever, my limit's right around, 600 pounds.
Mhm.
But I could carry more. I just don't. I've felt
Right.
when I do, I felt my car drag. It
Mhm.
feels bad. So
Right.
I've decided, no, it's got to be a little less weight.
Mhm.
But that's kind of, I mean, that's neither here or there. I mean, because if the vehicle can handle it and you're being paid a ton, well, then maybe you do it. I don't know, but
Yeah. Well, one of my funnier stories, and it was one of my first big roadie orders in recent months. I happened to it said pickup truck, and it was a pickup. I picked up 3 heating and air units, and this went on my F-150. But when I tried to bungee in the units, one of the bungee cords popped and took out my rear window. So I've learned from those type of mistakes there. And then, ironically, when I had another opportunity from the same heating and air distributorship to the same people, I then had the cargo van, and the cargo van would have handled those 3 heating and air units ideally. But then the unit that I carried this time was a big single commercial heating and air unit. So you learn as you go. You learn as you go.
yeah, 100%. I see that Tim Gigwise here says, oh, I can do a trailer with a car on it too. Like I know Tim's vehicle is like a beast, kind of like it. I've watched him on it. I've talked to him on his live streams and stuff, and I know his vehicle's like a beast. And Tim, absolutely, you can and you should be if you're interested in this. Like, take advantage,
Yeah.
man. A trailer gets you a lot.
Yeah, Roadie app definitely, at least in my market, there are certain gigs that come out that are asking specifically for a trailer. Now, I've also seen on Bungie, there is a guy whom I have done a couple of gigs with on the other side of the state. He has a pickup truck, a GMC pickup truck, but he has a trailer, and he just loads everything up in the trailer.
Yeah.
So yes, that is one way of doing it as well. There's as I learned when I was a computer science major at one point, there's more than one way to skin that cat. There's more than one way to write that program.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, like you're talking about like a confined thing, but even just the flatbeds that, um, I mean, even those can carry a lot of weight, and plus they're a lot easier to unload and load. I mean,
Mhm.
it's than your own than my vehicle, let's say.
Mhm.
So I mean, there's ways around things. There are
Yes.
ways to like up your game without going to the van,
Mhm.
or to those kind of levels. I do want to real quick. I do want to say this. So I was asked recently
Mhm.
by somebody who's doing Curry and
Mhm.
is doing really very well with it in LA. But he asked me how I'm taking so much paint. Like he sees the offers that I put up, and he's like, "How do you take that much paint though? I need to see how you stack your car because I don't get it." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And the way he was reading it, um, the way that the Sherman Williams stuff comes out, like, let me see if I just have, oh, I don't have one in here right now. But like it'll say like, 20 items at 10 pounds each, 30 items at 5 pounds each,
Mhm.
5 items at 10 pounds each. All that is telling you, all that's really helping you with is total weight. Because let me put it this way: those 5 gallon buckets hold 45 to 50 gallons of industrial paint. So
Mhm.
if you're carrying 300 pounds, you're really only carrying probably 3 in like 5 gallon Home Depot buckets. That's all it is. So it's not like it's stacked to the roof for 300 pounds.
Right.
I mean, in fact, there's a lot of room to stick things in. So when you see those, again, realize, you guys, if you're on Curry and they're sending it through to you, it fits in your car. So if you see like 30 things and it's just looks like, oh my gosh, there's no way 20 items at this, it's not 20 items. It could be that 20 could be in one 5 gallon bucket.
Mhm.
That just means that they used, it's weird, but it means they used 20 cans of gallon paint to make that batch up or whatever they did.
Right.
So it's kind of more for their records, but really all I do is just add the weight. That's all it comes down to. I just total out the weight and I say, okay, listen, 550 pounds, that's easy. So don't look at the line items and how many number of items there are, because usually that won't be the amount of items. But um, uh, So now it's spring, or we're getting into spring. I hear about people seeing their markets coming back up big time. I know that Curri has started their onboarding process of some more cars and some more people. So you might see some smaller offers, but trust me, they're countered by a bunch of big ones, and people will fall off the app. This happens every year. New people come on, and then they say, "Well, I don't want to. I'll just stick in my general area and do DoorDash. I don't want to be carrying a bunch of paint." And then there's other people who, and this is a big point, I know with both you and I, that so a lot of people say, you know, I don't want to drive that many miles. Why? What are you doing? I mean,
why have
that's
your
a
vehicle?
that's a gift. That's a gift to you.
Why have your vehicle if you're talking about, I ain't putting the miles on my vehicle?
Yeah.
I mean, and this is what we were talking about this week. Now, if you're going to make more money with your vehicle driving it and making money than you'll ever get if you try to sell it.
Yeah.
If you bought that vehicle new or used, it's already dropped 20 to 35% in its value the moment that you took it away from that lot.
Yeah.
So, and then again, the other thing that I mentioned in our conversation was, you've got W-2 folk and I'm not going to say it's just always W-2, but when you have a W-2 job, and let's say you have to drive 45 minutes one way to your job, you don't complain about those miles. You just dutifully go to your job, you do what you do, and then you dutifully drive your 45 minutes back. And you get nothing for those 45 minutes because those are commute miles, tax purposes. So the only way miles matter is in the dollar to mile ratio if you want to use that formula. Otherwise, just drive your goddamn vehicle.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking about this yesterday. Just drive it into the ground, in fact, because somebody was saying to me how, I can't remember, it wasn't Bud Soda, but somebody was saying to me how if you really want to know, it's like if your car is like 2 to 3 years old and you're looking at new stuff, you should do a trade-in. If it's over 3 years old, you should be selling it privately. I'm against both. I think keep that car and drive it into the ground. You're never going to get the value out of it.
Never. The only way you'll get value if it's some high dollar vehicle that just happens to be one that appreciates in value. Now, how many vehicles that are made out there appreciate in value? More than likely, when you buy your vehicle, you may have traded in for that vehicle. You're already been upside down because the vehicle that you traded into covered your negative equity. So from that point, you're going to have to drive the vehicle to even get your money's worth out of it.
Yeah,
that's just simple. That's just simple car talk right there.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I guess if you've been a gig worker for a while and you've filed your taxes properly, you should know. I mean, it should start becoming apparent that mileage is about the only freebie that we get. Like, the more you put on, the better you'll
it
do.
Gets. The better
it just gets better the more miles you drive that are legit.
Yeah. That is your best friend. In fact, I told you how I'd done some taxes for myself, queen of my life, her daughter, and my daughter. And your biggest single deduction is going to be miles. It's not going to be, and do not try to double dip with maintenance and gas and all that stuff. You're bucking for an audit, especially if you're looking to get money back. I'm talking from experience. And the only reason why that it was considered a victory, at least by some IRS the actual IRS attorneys. I happened to double dip, as I mentioned, and I was looking for a few $100s back. The IRS came back and says, "No, we're auditing you, and we want $6,000." I ended up getting a slap on the wrist, having to pay back about $600 to $800 because I had all the documentation that covered all that. But the long story short is mileage.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's another thing about the last. I'm trying to figure out which last mile apps aren't pretty transparent. That's another sign of something good going on in that space, by the way, guys, that on all these, or most of, I'm trying to think of the ones that aren't, but these apps are 100% transparent. Curri tells you how many minutes away you are from the pickup. It shows you where the pickup to drop off is, says the miles, the total pay. There's no hidden agenda in any of this.
Right. And if there's a discrepancy in what you're to make based on what the gig has presented to you, you can go to them and get an adjustment in pay.
Absolutely.
And more than not, but here's the key. You have to do it before you complete the gig, at least letting them know what's going on. If you come to them after, it's going to be tough, but do it as soon as you see what the situation is. Let them know what's going on, and more than likely you're going to get that adjustment in pay, whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you guys it doesn't happen often, but and there's a new system integrated to Curri, for example, with Sherman-Williams. But I've gotten to the Sherman-Williams mega store down in Parker before and known that I've looked at the order. The total weight I should be carrying is about 350, 375, and all of a sudden it's the same order number, but there's 625 pounds on it. Well, before, like you were just saying, before I even load that into my car, I need that fixed.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I load that into my car under that order number, I'm now taking that. It doesn't matter the weight. That's now my order. My job is to deliver it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just call Curri and say, listen, I took it at 450, I got the screenshot, or, you know, whatever you're doing for records, and I got here at 625, I don't mind taking it, but can you make an adjustment on the pay? They'll make it on the fly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they'll do it right there because they're not going to screw around with you not taking it.
Right.
And they will realize, okay, wait a minute. Yeah, it was 450. What happened? Why is it 625? And they won't sit there and like worry about that portion of it with you on the phone. They'll give you a higher pay, let you go about your way, and then figure out what happened internally.
Right. Yeah. There's no having to go through a supervisor and all that, like with Instacart when it comes to mileage. You're supposed to get a bump for mileage when the store is more than 30 minutes away from the drop-off destination.
Yeah.
Instacart has gotten to a point now they're saying, no, we ain't doing that now.
Yeah.
The other adjustment is heavy pay, in which basically if one of your batches, or if you're at that order where the total weight of the items is more than 50 pounds, you're supposed to get a bump in pay. If you look, Instacart is they're trying to argue you down and say, no, we're not moving on any of that now. Whereas with the last mile places, you don't have to worry about that. You present them the information, more than likely you're going to get the adjustment.
Yep.
And there's no haggling, there's no haranguing. You don't have to ask for a supervisor.
And I think it's a big perk that we all, if you work the mainstream gig apps, DoorDash, Grubhub, Rideshare, or Instacart, if you work any of those, we all know that if you do need help, you're usually calling out of country. Here, the logistics of last mile services are usually handled in country. And it's usually a call center where somebody does understand fully where you are, what you're doing, exactly what's going on, and what's supposed to happen.
That's most of the apps. Point Pickup may not be, and Roadie may not be. But speaking of Roadie, it used to be where you can get certain adjustments. Like when I used to do a lot of airport pickups, if you got a piece of luggage that is much heavier than what it should be, typically over that 50-pound threshold, you used to be able to contact them and get an adjustment. Well, you don't get that adjustment. So what we're talking about is, generally speaking, with most of these other apps that are out there, there are some apps that you don't get those type of adjustments, but you kind of just learn from experience.
Yeah. And there's I finally saw, this is gonna I guess it's not surprising to me, but I finally saw that there's a place in Curri for the customers to tip. I've never received one tip. But here's the thing, guys. It's one of those situations where I don't expect to get a tip because I'm being paid well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't expect these outsourcing services are they're trying to pay correctly to get the job done correctly. It's important to them to have it done correctly and quickly and efficiently. So they're going to pay right, but they're also trying to watch their bottom line too. So they're not going to come back in and tip. They'll leave you a good review and all that. That's fine. But it's not something where you're going to come in and go, what will I get on tips? Because here's my advice. You're probably not going to get any.
Now, there are some apps that do, at least in my experience. I'll just put it like that. Roadie, you may see a tip.
Yeah.
Okay. Point Pickup, rarely, but every now and then, once in about 1,000, you'll probably see a tip. Freight, You may see a tip on some of the orders. In fact, I just happened to
Yeah.
go back and look
Yeah.
through some of them. But freight, you may see a tip. Those are the ones that come to mind. Dispatch, you're not going to see a tip.
Mhm.
And Bungee, the only tip that I've gotten is from the actual customer who handed me a 20. So,
Yeah, I was gonna say sometimes when it's B to C, maybe there's a tip involved, but with a lot of what I'm doing is B to B. That's
Mhm.
where there's really never a tip involved because it's two warehouses. They're like,
right. Well,
like
yeah,
just
yeah. Then
get
yeah,
the
you're
job
just
done,
going
man. We're paying you good. Like,
right, right.
you know.
Yeah.
So I mean, to me, I don't. I guess here's my point. I don't really. If somebody was asking me, I don't really care about the tip because the pay is that much better, and I'm seeing it with full transparency. So I don't mind. I know what I'm taking. I know what I'm being paid, and it's not like I'm like I hope there's a tip on it because I don't. I mean that'd be great, but I don't expect it, and I'm already happy with the pay.
Mm.
You know, so I mean, it's just so much. Like I guess my point is what like I to think inside the box, even not outside of it. Doesn't it make sense that that the last mile delivery space is doing better than the other spaces because they are staying 100% transparent? It does to
Yeah,
me. I mean,
yeah.
transparency means you're doing honest business.
Right. You know what? And I first I'm going to say this, Steve, that I know the transparency is that's like your biggest thing.
Yeah.
You're gonna talk transparency, transparency, transparency.
Yeah.
But yes, by and large, it's been my experience with the last mile places because that's where it's at anyway. It's all about getting the job done, and they understand that there's a certain standard in which people should be paid, at least with most of the apps.
Yeah.
Now, Roadie is one of those that where the money is not what it was back in 2018. That's just one of the apps. But at the same time, it also depends on the job.
Sure.
It also depends on the job because I'm looking at one this morning, which I completed. Bear with me here if it shows up. If you want to talk miles, dollar to miles, it was like 2 to 1. It paid $45 this morning, and it was a 2 to 1 plus mile ratio.
Right.
So it also depends on what it is. Now, if you're trying to pick up something from the airport, you're not going to get the same dollar to mile ratio. It used to be pretty close to 1 to 1, but no more. It's more like about 60 cents a mile, at most 75 cents a mile on a Roadie app for that. Again, you just have to look at the gig and do your quick math. And more than likely, if you do your quick math correctly, you're going to know what you're making, and it's going to be worth your while.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. The other thing too is I'll compare to, you have U.S. Electric, you have Ferguson Plumbing, and Sherman-Williams are all nationwide. They're in every state.
Right.
The plumbing supply, you can be paid pretty good, but you're usually taking like a box or 2 boxes, not a lot of stuff, not a lot of weight.
Mhm.
And then if you're like, well, why does paint pay so much more? Well, they pay more because they need that paint quicker and because you're doing more work.
Mhm.
You're lifting a lot of paint. You
Right.
know, I mean, so like whenever I see, like Ferguson Plumbing and it comes in and I know it'll go higher, I know that at a point, if I really want that offer, I have to accept it before a number I would accept for paint.
Right.
Because I know that Ferguson Plumbing will only go so high before somebody's going to take it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Whereas
yeah.
paint, people will wait because they're like, I ain't moving 600 pounds of paint until that goes up.
Now, speaking of Bungee, now that's something that you have to keep in mind because basically you're gonna more than likely with Bungee, if what you see is what you're gonna get. So you have to kind of also take into consideration the type of work that you're going to be doing. And I would say that even with the dispatch app as well.
Yeah. I'll agree. The dispatch. I really am curious about your view. I asked you before we came on, and I really want to know because I signed up for Bungee. I have not engaged it yet, but I wanted to hear your take on it because Hannibal and I did a Beyond the Algorithm where we threw Bungee into how with the rest of these apps, and really based on like things we were reading, it made sense, but I want to know firsthand because I'm not sure it pays how these other apps do. Maybe I'm wrong.
That is correct. That's why I said you have to pay attention to what you're getting into.
Yeah.
The best example that I could give you, and this is probably the best paying one that I had, it was a now you have what's a solo opportunity or a duo opportunity. That's typically how it's going to work. Actually, I'm gonna give you two examples, but the second example, and this is one that first come to mind, it was supposed to have been a solo opportunity where I was supposed to take these marble, this shipment of marble to someone's house. And then what happened was I'm there and this other guy is there, and we both had the same order. And come to find out, he was assigned to it because that was some heavy. You try to lift some marble. It ain't like picking up a box of popcorn. Okay.
Not at all. In fact, be careful when you're doing it because, like even tiles, stuff like that, you might just go for it and drop it.
Right.
Because you just aren't ready for it,
Right. Now that order, I would say really didn't pay what it should have paid. I think that, but that's Bungie. And you just have to use your best judgment with those. And so I'll look in when a gig comes up, I'll look inside where it says view what it is and kind of decide if it's worth my while. Now this goes back to the other example. This is a local one. It was offering $88 and change, and it was taking what amounted to was some heavy stuff out to the lake. And when myself and the partner saw what we're looking at, in fact, he called me and says, "We got a situation here." There were 5 pallets, but technically it was more like it's 4 pallets. It supposedly said in the order, but it was more like 7 pallets. And so we had to get in contact with Bungie to let them know what's going on. This is more than what you thought it was.
Right.
And
were the pallets fully loaded?
Yes. And this is some heavy stuff. This is not light stuff. I mean, each pallet, when we broke it down, we basically had to do it we had to break down this stuff ourselves. And we had to, handle this stuff together. I forgot what it was. It was some heavy metal. I'll put it like that. Some heavy metal and some other items. So when we contacted Bungie and let them know what was going on, they did make an adjustment. They basically doubled the base pay and then gave a bonus on top of it. So again, this is a situation. This is an example of where you really have to be mindful. Now, this is not advertising though, but if you want to know the example that I'm talking about, there is an upload on my site, on my channel about my Bungie experience, and I go into detail about that.
Advertise away. In fact, if somebody wants to grab that link, I know which one he's talking about. I can't get to the screen. Let's put it in the chat because watch it, guys. I mean, watch any of these things. I've been watching a lot of trucking stuff and aside from van stuff to see where last mile is going. I'm trying to get that heads up on it because there's some things going on with truckers that are going to overflow to more work for us, non-truckers. And by truckers, I mean 18-wheelers.
Now, speaking of transparency and all, there's a guy looking in, Jeff Thomas Black, Mr. Jeff Thomas Black. I've never chatted with him before, but we've exchanged Twitter messages, and he's retweeted some of my stuff. He has a book, or at least it's some type of project he's doing where he discloses the evil of DoorDash. Let's just put it like that. And I just want to acknowledge him. It's a good read. He's done a lot of stuff, a lot of 21st century motion of it, and check his stuff out.
I'm actually having him on the audio podcast here soon.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
So I saw him on Show Me the Money Club, and he's sent me some. I think maybe on Instagram. I can't remember what social platform it was connecting with me. But I finally was like, "Hey, man, why don't you come on the audio podcast?" Because on the audio podcast we cut a little more loose. But I wanted to. I mean, I'm glad you joined us, Jeff. And hopefully, if you're listening, we can at least show you maybe this isn't quite the evil that you put the other ones in. Because I agree with you on the other ones. I mean, there's some. There's some really sketchy things that go on. I don't think any of us deny that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. To me, you guys, you know, like I've even VHO, like I haven't done Flex, obviously, or oddly, I've never done Amazon Flex. I really do want to get on there. There's still a waiting list now here. I didn't sign up in time. Now I did. So I want to do it just for the trying of doing it. But I've done VHO, and you
Okay.
know, it's something I can accept because you know what you're accepting. You
Right.
see it up front. Okay, you're going to make $30 an hour, whatever it is, for 3 hours of work. If you get it done in 2, you still get paid the whole amount.
Right.
So and the thing I liked about VHO, for example, was they do keep you in a very centralized area. Whereas I know from talking with others that Amazon Flex has you going all over the place to
Yes.
rural, and
Yes.
you're doing what we were just telling you should do, putting miles on. However, the
Those
pay isn't setting off correctly
right.
to
Now
offset those miles.
I did Amazon Flex. I'll just describe quickly in my market from 2018, 2019. Amazon Flex came to Columbia, South Carolina area in October, or at least they started in October 2018. I was in the second wave of people in November 2018, and I did it for the next like 10 months. I made 30,000 in 10 months, and I was like the top earner among the drivers. But Amazon Flex in some ways is like DoorDash in that you get people who come in and will take those lower offers and not allow the offers to mature. Basically what you're talking about with Curri
Right.
or a dispatch where you would like to see it mature, but it doesn't, because you got people come in thinking $54 for 3 hours is great. And you're messing it up for everybody else. You're not allowing the algorithm to work in your favor.
Yeah.
It's my experience. At least this is just me. I feel that Amazon Flex is like a third world country. Now,
Yeah.
why am I not doing Amazon Flex? This is the only way I could. This the only way that I can surmise what happened. I've been a very vocal person about. I kind of spoke of Amazon Flex as Mr. Jeff Thomas Black talking about DoorDash. I feel that Amazon Flex uses the drivers as a necessary evil, specifically when you're opening up a market. Your money is going to be the best when the market is first new, when it's new, because that's when you're going to see those $100 plus blocks, at least what I saw in South Carolina. Okay. But that said, the reason why I'm no longer doing Amazon Flex is because I cursed out some van company supervisors. And and they asked me, why don't you come on with us? I said, why would I take a pay cut?
Right.
Yep. Later that week, I got an email saying that I've been deactivated. So I can only surmise that I cursed out the wrong people.
Yep.
But again, the reason why I spoke so derisively of the van people is because Amazon's priority are the van companies. They've got to keep those people happy because of the investment that they have with the resources, with the vans and the people. And so they've got to have volume going to those people to keep them busy. And so the drivers are just the necessary evil. They get the overflow. But when you're starting out the market, the drivers, the Amazon Flex drivers are a priority. But once the van companies come in, that's where your money went.
And to be honest, let's be honest, guys. When you get involved with Amazon, you should realize you should already know what you're getting involved with. I mean, we know how the warehouse workers are treated. We know how the employees who drive Amazon trucks are treated. I mean, they're penalized up the wazoo if their timing's off, anything.
If they go for a bathroom break, that's pretty much detrimental to them.
Yeah, I mean the Gatorade bottle thing was not a joke, you guys. In the warehouses, people have Gatorade bottles to go to the bathroom. I mean, to me, that's just beyond belief. Right there speaks volumes.
There have been people who have died on the job in the warehouse, and Amazon has hemmed and hawed on paying. Basically, want to say that's their tough luck. The van companies are set up. Your agreement with Amazon with the van company is that Amazon is held harmless of anything. So that means if the shit goes down, it's on you. It's not on Amazon. That's how they do things. They take no responsibility.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen. I know an Amazon Flex driver, or not Flex. I know an Amazon driver who uses one of their trucks, and here's how I view it. He's under way too much stress while driving, because when we're driving, we shouldn't be that stressed out. but I've talked to him many times. He's very stressed when he's driving because he
He's got to
knows,
complete that route in a certain
yeah,
amount of
even
time.
an accident, a car accident in front of him can like get him majorly penalized.
But then again, as an Amazon Flex driver, you can be deactivated for not completing your route within a allotted time too many times. At least that's what I recall from my days as Amazon Flex driver as well. But anyway.
Yeah. I mean, it's just great. I see that, hey, Beacon Nick, what's it up? I see that, what did you say in here? Best to separate doing Amazon Flex.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I guess you instantly must have known what he meant. I know Nick, and I'm not sure really what he means here. What do you mean? Like separate it from the, okay.
From last mile. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So Nick, you're kind of saying like maybe Amazon Flex is more like the rest of the mainstream apps. Like,
yes, it's like the DoorDash of
okay.
driving apps.
Yeah. See, that's kind of in a certain way. That's how I view Roadie. I know some good Roadie stuff comes through, but that's how I see it. I see Roadie that way too. I mean, I think that I know people. I mean, like I don't know if you guys if you guys know Weird Wesley. Wesley works for UPS, and they're like borderline on a strike right now. And UPS bought out Roadie, and Roadie did great on its own before it was with UPS. Now it's been a downhill decline, and UPS is on the border of a strike. So it's crazy that a company like UPS that's been around. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm going to say this. I'm not young. I think it's been around since I've been born.
They've been around a while, and they're known to pay well. That's the other thing. They're known to pay well. And I actually did some work for UPS about 20 years ago. And at least I'm dating maybe I shouldn't talk about what I knew then, though. But what I do know is people tend to make good money for UPS. And for them to talk about strike, that's news. That's news.
Yeah, I mean, and this is if you've never seen the handle Weird Wesley, when he comes into a room, watch, because good guy, and he is this is like, people know me to be able to have a conversation with even people I don't agree with fully, but he's always worked union jobs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big fan of unions. However, there's a time and a place. I'm not, he is all for the unions. He said that when he worked for Walmart, he was so glad they had a union. When he worked for UPS, he's now glad they have a union. I guess in those cases, I actually wonder, when you go to work a W-2 for Walmart, are you glad that, is it almost part of your decision to take the job because there's a union? Like if there wasn't a union, would you not even be applying, is my question. I'm not for unions, but if like I had to work for Walmart, I might be glad there's a union.
Well, Jeff says unions in general is the last war to capitalism. Yeah. It's the lost war to capitalism. But I've lived mostly in right to work states.
Yeah.
And so, and my only experience with a union, I was a very young adult. And what I saw was unions rewarding seniority. Yep. And the union person, pretty much a fat cat who did nothing for you. But we're talking 40 years ago. But I also understand how unions were the ones who fought for certain protections for employees. So there's some historical significance of unions.
Oh, 100%.
It's just that I guess the question is, do unions really work for you? And
are you getting your pay's worth out of it? So
right
here, I'm from Michigan. My whole family's from Detroit or Lansing, so auto industry. And back in the day, those jobs wouldn't have even been really doable without the unions. Back in the day, those were needed unions. The teachers need a union, although the teachers' union's a mess. Police and fire need a union. Otherwise, they could be put into life-endangering situations that the union does protect them for. Without getting into too much detail about unions, I will say this. I don't think the gig economy it was never designed to be, but I don't think it's a place for unions.
No, it's not. I mean,
that's just...
I mean, I think gig economy, at least from what we're talking about, is really a form of entrepreneurship. I mean, either you make it work or you don't.
Yeah.
And your success is on basically how you outwork the next person. So this, I think that's a fair way of saying it.
Yeah.
And I would not want some standardizing of wages, because then for me it's going to be a pay cut, and where am I going to find something at this stage in my life where, I mean, I'll say it up front in that, I mean, I have been making over 80,000 the last few years, and I'm on pace to make more than that this year. If you standardize pay, now where am I going to find that type of money at this time of life? I mean,
and on flex schedule, and allowing you to work 60 apps at the same time.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that's another thing too that would get very complicated, you guys, is like, how would you be multi-apping under a union?
Right. Well, Mr. Jeff Tom says is designed to end unions and employment. There is truth to that, because basically, you know, you pay as you go, and you know, you make it work or you don't.
Yeah. But I mean, the truth of it is too, I mean, just to be honest here, guys, is that, look, last year was the lowest, not in the lowest. It was the lowest year for W-2 union membership at 10.1%. That's the lowest unions have ever been in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So unions have been on a decline for a while. People are enlightened to it. And I challenge the right to work state thing, because Michigan, I'm from Michigan, was a right to work state until last Friday, when Gretchen Whitmer, the governor, declared that right to work was gone, and that if you had a job where there's a union, you now have to be in the union. So I guess for those maybe that don't understand, a quick just blog on it is that right to work means you have the right to go to a job and say you do want to pay into the union or you don't. And so I get some people saying, but then wouldn't you have all the people who don't pay in getting the union perks? And this is where I say, here's where, obviously, if that were the case, nobody'd pay in and they'd all take the union perks. So there is a reason. The reason is because if you opt out of the union, you are a W-2 employee who's subject to being fired. So if the union goes on strike and you agree with the union, but you've opted out and you're like, I'm going to strike with them, the company can go, you're fired. But they can't say that about the union people as easy, because they have to deal with these unions. So there are protections. It's not like you get I've seen the term free ride. Those who don't pay into the union and right to work states are getting a free ride from the unions. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case at all. I think that you are choosing a different way to have here's my argument. If I wasn't a union and they say strike, okay, now I got to strike. And if they say go back to work, like I don't really want to be working for a company that would rather spend money on legal fees than paying me correctly. Mm-hmm. It's just like that example of like, would any of you be a W-2 DoorDash employee? 99% plus probably no.
I don't know, man. I mean, you got these folk who are okay with earn by time, man. I mean,
yeah, but I mean, are there many though, really? Because we got to remember that 85% of the gig economy works 17 hours or less.
Yes.
So obviously those people don't live on that money. They have another job. This is just side income. So the 85 to the 15%, I mean, are those people really going to go, yeah, give me the W-2? Because the 85% are not, because they already have a W-2.
And they could care less. That's the other thing.
Yeah, they're not even looking at these YouTube channels or how to bet. They just go out. I mean, 65% of the gig economy works 7 hours or less a week. I know these are weird stats, but to me, that's like you're basically working 1 or 2 days a week just to supplement maybe some fun money or gifts, or you need a little extra or whatever. But you're not like going on YouTube on how to earn better, what to do. Should you go to a van? And you're just working a little bit and taking in some side income. You don't really care about all these politics on the side.
Right. And they go about doing things just like that as well. They go about completing their work the same way. And, you know, but that's, I guess that's really another conversation though. Those are the people I call the thirsties, because they could care less. They really could. But that said, at least in gig economy work, who wants to, at least if you're trying to make this thing work, And maybe that's the intent of gig economy. It was never really for people like me and you who've actually made an actual sustainable living out of it. Maybe it was never intended to do that. But there are people like us who have made it work for ourselves. I mean, the gig economy has taken me from really relying mostly on being an insurance agent to where insurance agent is less than 10% of my income now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's and you can there's a movie. I haven't recommended it in a while, you guys. I think it's on Freeform. It's on one of the, maybe Pluto or one of those free streaming services where you don't have to pay anything. It's called The Gig Is Up. It heavily bases on the side of a lot of it's based on unions, but it's talking about global, not just here in America. And globally by 2025, and this isn't like an autonomous date that just is BS. The gig economy is supposed to be like 3 billion workers worldwide.
Wow.
I mean, it's like 1.7 right now. It's supposed to be 3 billion workers in the gig economy worldwide. If you're going to tell me that that the U.S. is going to the free market of the world is going to sit back and let the gig economy go forward, and we're not going to participate, I'm going to ask you to just ask yourself that question again, if that would be the case, because there's no way we're just going to sit back and watch the rest of the world progress.
No.
We're just not, and not this whole country is not willing to be employees. Like I don't know who out there is taking the hourly DoorDash pay. I know the argument is the biggest argument I've heard for it is that you are paid while you're waiting for food, but at the same time, the amount they're paying you so much is so little that I don't even get why you would choose that over just going for it on the platform and not taking the hourly.
Steve, that's
any market.
That's a mind ploy where it says you're being paid to wait for food. No, if you were actually being paid to wait for food, it would be like the way Uber did it when they first had Uber Eats, where there was you had actual wait pay that was on top of what you were making on that order. DoorDash does not add extra money for waiting. There's no wait time pay with that. So. Right. That's just a mind game, and a lot of folk aren't willing to go behind the numbers to figure that out for themselves. So,
but I've seen some very low pays. I mean, I've had people saying like, "Well, I did the hourly, and I'm making like $9 an hour." I'm like, that's a problem. I mean, I would move on from that, you guys, or switch off it, go back to the other way, even if your market's not great.
Well, see, a lot of folk also use the earn by time to build up their acceptance rate under the premise that they're going to get better paying order opportunities, because you basically have to accept every order on earn by time. Or, if you decline that second order within an hour, you're booted out of earn by time pay mode to earn per order. Okay.
Right.
So, DoorDash, as with a lot of things, they play off of your lack of knowledge and understanding, or your ignorance. They play off of your thirst. And obviously, there's a lot of people, maybe they're not always thirsty, but they don't know, or they don't care to know what's going on. And that's what DoorDash plays off of.
Yep. So I was seeing this comment from Tim. However, EBT in my market pays $13.75 an hour. Match that with a $6 bonus, then it's $12 an hour. To that, making your hourly pay $25.75 an hour on DD. I'm a little confused on this one.
Earn by time pays $13.75 an hour. Add that $6 peak, then it's a $12 an hour to that, making. I'm missing. You may have to rewrite that so I can understand it, but I know that earn by time in my market, I have seen it. They're saying that you can make as much as $18 an hour doing earn by time. Even if you do $18 an hour, at least for me, and maybe for some others that I know of, that's still a pay cut. Right. Because folk like myself who pick and choose, we're making well over $30 an hour.
Right.
Okay. And they say that you can keep the tips. But I've shown where earned by time and that high percentage rate, I've shown time and time again, you're going to outperform earned by time and high percent and that high acceptance rate. You're going to outperform that time and time again.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that I'm going to be honest here. I think DoorDash knows this. I think they know this is the way they would like it. Of course, they're going to pay you less, but the only time I think this would even ever be like Tim, you live in St. Louis, like I live in Denver. My cost of living is very, very, very high. So if you live in rural eastern Colorado by the Nebraska border, the cost of living is very cheap. However, you're not going to be getting bomb offers. So at that might be that one case scenario in a rural area where, okay, it makes more sense for me to do it this way, but you might pay half the rent I do. You might pay less on groceries. Your overall month to live might be 50% of what it is for me. So I can't afford to work on an earned by time.
No, it's a pay cut.
Right. I need to be able to multi-app. I need to be able to see offers. I need to be able, and again, this, Jeff's in here making some good comments, and I know his book and what he said on Show Me the Money Club and stuff. He makes sense that yes, these mainstream ones are doing a lot of bad things. And that's what I'm looking forward to talking to him about. But I think the last mile service is something different. I mean, could it go sideways? Sure. But I don't know how. There's too many people, there's, like I was saying, there's more last mile services than all the other companies combined. So
okay, I see what GigWise is saying. Okay, yeah. Typically, when you do peak pay, the earn by time gets double what earned per order. So depending in his market, the situation is that $25.75 an hour for earn by time. That's really trying to get them out there to accept all those orders.
Right.
At the same time, you're probably still going to make more than that earned by time person if you select, or if you're selective with your orders. If you do pick and choose the ones that you want, you're still probably going to outperform it. But $25.75 does sound good.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely sounds good.
Yeah.
And if you're having a bad day, that really sounds good.
Yeah.
But at
really
what
good.
cost? At what cost?
Yeah. Let's see what Nick says here. If I can get 27 per hour at least on Amazon Flex, then I have a chance to get my hourly rates over 40 an hour. Wait, what?
Okay. I think then it's just how you work your route. Now, let's say if you accept a 3-hour block for $81. So that's $27 an hour. If you work the block right, if the route works out right, you may be able to finish in 2 hours.
I see.
Then you're at $40 an hour.
Right.
But the dollar per hour thing, when you're an independent contractor, that's somewhat, I mean, it's kind of subjective. It's purely subjective. And it's still a W-2 type conversation. As I've often said, the bottom line is what you do at the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of the month, and ultimately at the end of the year. That's all what matters. What you do per hour that's just, what they used to say, the coffee, what is it, the water jug conversation?
Oh yeah, the water cooler.
The water cooler conversation. Yeah. That's all it is.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I see Kevin T. I know Kevin's in Philly, and I know he's been trying to get on Curri for a while, but he's been doing medical career. I don't remember if you're W-2 or if this is independent contractor work where you're getting paid this, but to me, that's good pay. I mean, $40 an hour, unless you're not happy with it, Kevin, that seems like good pay. So you have something better going than DoorDash or rideshare or, are there other things you could be doing? Sure. But to me, you're already ahead of the game. Mm-hmm. You're already ahead of the people who are sitting in all these other apps and saying, why can't I get any business? Or why am I declining? I was talking to Nova Dasher and what did he tell me? He told me that he took in one day, I said, give me a guesstimate. he was talking about working a 10-hour day, and he said that he took 16 or 17 offers and he made good money. But I said, how many offers came through total? And he was like, I don't know. I said, but take a guess. He's like, well, for sure over 200. That's horrible. You got 200 offers and only 17 were acceptable.
Yeah, that means you're declining at just about a 90% clip.
Yeah, I mean, if that's happening, then something's wrong with the whole system, and I think that's part of the problem. So let me see. Yeah, when you first order 325 going 10 or when your first order is 325 going 10 miles, you'll rethink earn by time. Yeah. And I don't think
you get no tip on that.
I'm not 100%, but isn't it only that you can decline one per hour? Okay.
One
yeah.
per
I
hour.
mean, that's,
and the second you're booted out to pay per order.
Yeah. And so, I mean, so like earned by time. Okay. Earned by time was created to preemptively answer the question of what would happen. But in a gig app world, designed to pay less than in a pay by minute format, not hour.
See, there you go.
Yeah.
It's a pay cut. You're being paid less.
I mean, let me ask you, do you think that there's ever a time that earned by pay in any market is a good thing?
Earned by time?
Like in a rural area, and is there any scenario in your head that pops out where you're like, maybe?
I can't say in a market, but I guess ultimately it's on an individual basis. I shared this in another upload. I met a young guy who told me that earned by time worked well for him in certain times of the day. And I can live with that. I can live with that. Now, then in other times of the day, he does earn per order. But I'm also thinking too, because he's a young guy, he probably doesn't have a lot of responsibilities, a lot of bills and all that. Sure. And so that works well for him.
Right.
So I can't say market wise or location wise, but maybe it's just more so an individual thing.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, Driven Dad? Tony, what's up, Brian? What's up, Bordura? And I just saw, I know that you guys have been in here, but let me see what Tony's comment about Spark here is. I actually had a Spark that paid 65 on Monday. It was a 58 tip curbside.
And they didn't tip bait you either. That's good, man.
Yeah. I talk to people all the time who are like, does tip baiting really happen? And I'm like, yeah. I don't want to be a jerk, but I almost say, do you really work gig apps? Because, yeah, it is. If the platform allows it, it happens a lot. Mm-hmm. In fact, I'm surprised why some people who work a lot of platforms don't know that. I mean, yes, it happens. I think I've always said they need to make it much more difficult to remove a tip. Mm-hmm. You need to make like a system, maybe like where instead of just removing it, you need to call the company and make a recording where it says like, and they don't even have to have an operator. Just it goes right to a recording saying, if you need to cancel your tip, please leave your reason here. And now, in case it's disputed by the driver, I think that would get amazing amounts of people to just hang up.
That's putting the onus on the customer. Yeah, I can go with that. Now, I will say, just for whatever's worth, the last time at least I was tip baited was on Uber Eats, and I actually did something with someone else. What I saw someone else do on YouTube, and that I contacted Uber Eats about that tip baiting, and Uber Eats came through and actually paid me $10, which ultimately paid more than what the order was supposed to pay with the tip.
Yeah.
So that's one time that it actually worked where I challenged a tip baiting. In the past, I've just, kind of fumed and cursed at it and went on. But, that's one time it worked.
Yeah. And I mean, then there's, then we have the DoorDashes that make it, well, now I guess they have it so you can remove the tip or add to the tip or whatever, but you used to have to call in on those. And, I think that was there. Well, it's like, well, why don't you just show us the whole tip and be transparent? Well, because we know it's $2 and you're going to have a tip of $2 or more. It could be 50. So you're never going to know really if you're tip baited there. But I mean, I did like the fact they used to like stop the customer from doing it. But how would you know if you were tip baited? Because they're never showing you the full amount. So
Right.
you're
Right.
not going to know.
Well, in Instacart, same thing. You know, Instacart supposedly has a protection where it's like they can reimburse you up to $10,
Mm-hmm.
and it rarely happens.
Yeah.
It rarely happens. And so what I've learned is that you have to be very selective of the orders that you accept on Instacart, so that you may not be put in that situation. And what I mean by that is you have to take into consideration the store that where the order's coming from, the type of items and so forth, where the order supposedly is going to. That's a lot of strategy on your part, though. But sometimes you have to pass on something that just looks too good to be true. At least now, that's a lot to say. I mean, if you see a $50 order, you're probably going to jump at it, but you have to take into consideration some other factors. You really do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I see Tony's comment here about, most of my Spark tip baits, I believe, were default 7. So I think a lot take an accidental tip. I don't know what an accidental tip is. Is that mean like
they hit the wrong?
Oh,
they
I didn't
hit the
mean
wrong
to tip
key.
you. I don't want to tip you.
They hit the wrong key and they try to take it back.
Yeah, but to me, that's just, it sounds like an excuse to tip baiting. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's
But then again, crooks are smart.
Yeah.
Crooks are smart. It's that simple. They're that's why they're always one. I mean, when you're trying to prevent something from happening, something untowardly or something crooked from happening, the crooks are already 10 steps ahead of what you've tried to figure it out.
Right. Or people who, like, let's an example, I won't use DoorDash, but let's use Uber Eats where you can tip bait fairly easy. Like, if somebody isn't tipping and they are making orders to, let's just make it easy, McDonald's, and all of a sudden they notice, hey, I don't tip and I don't get my McDonald's for like an hour and it's cold. Let's try tipping even though I can't afford it. Wait, I can pull it out? So now every time they order, they're going to put a tip in and then just pull it out just to get their food quicker.
Well, that's basically what was the thing 2020 with Instacart. That made the news though. Where people were accepting these orders that had these very nice tips, and then no sooner than they marked it as complete, the people were saying they didn't get their order and they took back the entire tip. And now you've wasted all your time.
Yeah.
For nothing. And there was no protection of that. I mean, Instacart was saying, oh, gee, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that I have the perfect solution, but I think that if you're going to remove a tip, I mean, let's be honest. I worked in the bar industry for 20 years. I never had somebody put a tip on the table and then go, you know what? I don't actually want to tip you, because we're face to face.
Right.
They would never do that. But
might
because
get your ass kicked there.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I guess my point is like when you're doing, and it says leave at door, why? I mean, not why wouldn't they? Because it's it's just bad morals, bad moral compass to do it. But like, to be honest, like if somebody, is going to tip bait, they're not looking you in the eye. They don't even know who you are. So they don't care. If they're willing to be on that moral compass level, then they're going to do it. They don't care.
Right.
Again, why I love the last mile apps. These kind of things don't happen. You get paid. And if there's an issue, you call and you get paid still. Like, it's not like you're put on the phone. A lot of people that I've had on here have joked different versions of the joke, but like, hey, if you hear a rooster or something in the background, just hang up because you're going to get nowhere.
Yeah, kids in the background, or it sounds like belly dancer music, or this bazaar in the background. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of true. It's just sad. But yeah, I mean, here's Jeff's comment about the gig economy gives contractors broken business models on purpose. So I'm an independent contractor years before the gig economy. I've done production since 1997, laser lighting, pyrotechnics, sound, staging, everything. And so I've been in a traditional IC for a long time. And so I come in with a little bit different perspective. When I first integrated, I was doing this with production work, bartending, and rideshare. So yeah, I needed to be independent. I can't do that. And now these last mile apps, I got to say they have been a lifesaver. I won't say that I would be out of the gig economy without them, but I don't know where I'd be without them right now. Like at this point, I can understand why a lot of people are very angry right now.
Right. Well,
It's
just in general, I mean, I've shared that, at least from just a personality standpoint, I'm more cut for this. I like my autonomy. I like the fact that I'm not having to really answer up to people. I've worked altogether. I've probably worked in maybe one good W-2 situation. Somehow, admittedly, I have, I've butted heads with people. I've challenged. I have bucked the trends. I have fought the power in
Right.
W-2 situations, and I just know that I'm better suited personality wise for something like this as opposed to W-2.
Right. Yeah.
Because if somebody says something to me and it rubs me the wrong way, they may not have a good day afterward. I'm not going to shoot up the place, but they're going to know that I don't put up with their shit.
Yeah.
That's simple.
I mean, look at the bottom line here especially in the last mile spaces, just get your job done. Nobody's going to bark at you. And we're all in the same, it's a different environment. Everybody's just, let's just all get the job done.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's barking at you. In fact, a lot of people are very willing to help you in the last mile space.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I get places all the time and I'm willing to unload the whole thing. And people are like, yeah, we got this. Oh, we'll help you. Yeah. I mean, you don't ever see that on any, not that somebody else would come out and help you bring food up, but you just don't see a lot of positivity in the interactions in the other parts of the gig economy.
Mm-hmm.
I used to have a trick with rideshare where in 2015 or 2016-ish, like where people might say, I can tip you through the app, right? Like after tipping in the app was allowed. And they said, and I got sick of it because maybe 1 out of 10 actually did it, but they always said it. Now I can tip you through the app. Right?
I tipped you in the app. I tipped you in the app there.
But I always pulled a little prank on them. I always said, hey, you know what? Yeah, I think you can, but can you show me how you do that? Because I have a lot of people ask me how to do it. Mm-hmm. So because most people would lean forward and go, oh, well, you just go here and you add it. And at that point, they wouldn't retract the tips. I don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. But they felt like that connection. I was looking them in the eye. I'm turning around. I'm stopped. I'm like, can you show? And all of a sudden, I think it's like that same thing as like being the waiter. They just don't want to take back the tip. Now they feel like they had a connection with you.
Right.
And it's like, no, I'm not going to do that. But before we get out of here, can we let's maybe wrap up with a little bit of the van world. I guess whatever you want to say about it, because we've talked about it a few times, because I am looking at doing this. I've talked to Tony about this. He and I are looking at doing something too here in Denver. And I know you're liking it. My hope, if I go that route, is that I will be actually approaching a lot of these businesses myself independently. I don't know, I mean, like, I know we've talked a couple times about your, how's it going so far? But I mean, like, I guess, if you were just talking to somebody about, if somebody said to you, hey, you ran into another worker and they said, hey, what, is it worth it for me to upgrade to a van? What's your answer to that?
My answer is that I do know of people who and one guy in particular that I've mentioned a few times. His name is Rashad. He has gone up to a cargo van. It's not the same size van as mine. It's the smaller one. But he says it has made a big difference in the money that he makes. He's making in upwards of $250 a day, whereas in the past when he just had a car, he a good day for him was if he hit 200. Now he expects to make at least 200 a day. Sure. And again, that's using the Ford Connect van, the 4-cylinder van. So it can be a game changer for someone if they work it right. You know, do not do not think do not go in there expecting to go over the road, because over the road is kind of a another animal to itself, and there are people who are trying to get out of over the road. But you can't. But if you're gonna work a cargo van, continue working your gig apps if that's how you're graduating up to that level, because all you're doing is then putting your van in service as opposed to your other vehicle. And um, now, of course, the question is, do you use commercial insurance or personal insurance? You could probably get by with your personal insurance because um, you're not looking to uh, get a USDOT or MC. That's I know this is all other stuff though, but the long answer is that it can work for you. But you need to also do your homework so that you have some idea what you're getting into. Just don't run out and get a van, and then now all of a sudden, once you've got the keys in hand and you got that van note or whatever, now you're trying to figure out what the hell you're doing. No, have some idea what you're trying to go into with. And that's what I did. I kind of had some idea knowing that if I make so much a month, then I know that's my break even. That's my break even number. And I'm those numbers now. The goal now for me is to yes, take it to another level so I can get into commercial money, but also starting to pay down and pay off on things. I've been keeping up, but now I want to pay down and pay off on things. I'm past the initial outlay of stuff. Now it's to pay off on all that.
Yeah.
So I hope that I'm answering the question. I know.
I guess my takeaway is it's for certain people. It's not for everybody. You know, because it's almost like, have you tried the last mile apps? Because they involve a little more work. I would imagine, just knowing what it is, cargo van, even you're going to be paid more, but it's even going to involve more work.
Yes. Yes.
So therefore, you know, are you willing to put in me, if I'm going to work 8 hours, I don't mind hurting every muscle in my body and going home sore, as opposed to only working 3 active hours and for 5 hours declining. I would much rather come home sore and have worked 8 solid hours and made 3 times what most gig workers make.
Right. Well, the thing is for me now is that in recent weeks, as I've shared, the goal initially was to flip the ratio of money earned from the gig food apps to the last mile stuff, where it's where basically last mile, and that's where I'm at. I mean, I may not even turn on a gig food delivery app now for days at a time. In fact, like the week that I made over 2,200, which was a couple of weeks ago. Not a single DoorDash order. No DoorDash the entire week.
I mean, because if that's how I am, if I don't need those other apps, I don't turn them on. I only turn those on when I'm like, these last mile ones, and I got no dumpling today, and I got no last mile. Last miles just aren't popping like I want them to. So then I might turn on the other ones. So I think we both agree, don't get rid of your apps.
Right. Keep them as options.
Yeah. Keep them as options. You start jamming on these apps, but I really think, when I first started telling people get on Curri, if you signed up, you got on Curri the next day. Now I know some people who've been on a waiting list for a year. I've been on Curri for 2 years. So when I was first recommending it, and a lot of people were saying, yeah, but they will peak and then they will go down with their pay. We're 2 years in, and sometimes it's higher pay than when I hired on.
Well, that's good. That's good.
So, I mean, they're one of the few apps where I can say, look, not only have, and I think they were 4 or 5 months in, they were already in the profit. Uber's, I mean, I know Uber does some sketchy things, but Uber's been around since 2008, 15 years. They don't make a profit.
Well, you can credit their accountants and their attorneys though, but
the creative accounting for sure is
right.
there.
Someone asked, should I go out and buy $100,000 van? Well, no.
Yeah.
No. I mean, Josh, as I've shared, I started out in the gig economy with a 2009 Ford Taurus, and at the time when I first started doing Uber, I had 176,000 miles on that car. Okay, and I worked my way up from there. So, and the van that I have is not brand new. It's a 2019, and I never shared the price though, but it was 35,000 for that van, and my van note is actually under 600 a month. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not buying some. I mean, I know there's someone else out there on another site. He actually bought a brand new Mercedes Sprinter van. Okay, that's his choice. That was his decision, and he's doing quite well with what he's doing in his strategy. But
Mm-hmm.
do whatever decision you make sure it's one that makes sense for you financially as well. Whatever you do. I mean, someone mentioned about a transit van.
Yep.
That may be your best choice. In fact, my getting into my just what actually kind of inspired me to go out and get a cargo slash sprinter van was meeting a young guy. He's 26 years old at the time, and he had a 4-cylinder Ram uh, uh, transit version of the van, and he's making 8,000 a month. And I was at 6,000 a month doing what I was doing. Now I'm up to 8,000 a month in a matter of in less than 6 months. So a transit van is just as good as for certain situations, just as good or as having a Ford Transit 250, which is what I have.
Right. And to Josh's comment here, he's saying, I know Josh, and Steve knows I'm half joking. I do. And he's saying that he does think going up from a smaller car to an SUV would benefit him. I will say this, on a lot of the Curri orders, what you're getting in your car really usually fits in my SUV. So I can't say for sure that you're going to see a ton of a big difference going to SUV. You might see a few orders that you wouldn't have, but you probably are seeing them in the car too.
Right. Now, I will say this: when I had my Pathfinder, there are other opportunities that may open up for you just having an SUV. I've shared with me doing Federal Express personal vehicle program. I started in 2020 for this guy that I'm still dealing with. He said, I love pickup trucks and I love SUVs. And having the Pathfinder was my entryway into doing Federal Express personal vehicle program, where you go out there, you're paid per day to do a route.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is, these are all the things that look, I think that everybody in here is partially in here because this show, it's like Sergio and Chris with the Show Me the Money Club. This show is now dedicated to let's make some money. Okay. Because the other apps I've been doing these since 2015. I've done a lot of work with Para and David since the beginning, since day one. And we've learned a ton. And nothing is going on a back upward swing. Nothing. It's all heading down in pay and oversaturation. So are those apps over? Maybe not, but it is time to pivot and play some other fields too. Maybe it's not last mile for you, but I think that everybody should try a last mile app.
Right. Now, for whatever it's worth, you'd ask me about the van. I mentioned about a guy whom I met recently who, I mean, he's got me really thinking about a lot of things though. And he has a Sprinter van. He actually has a contract gig where he does a lot of work with his Sprinter van, but he does some work on the side. And I'm telling you, this guy makes well. I've seen his numbers. He does well. So there's an opportunity for some entrepreneurship with the van. It's just a matter of you finding those opportunities in your market.
And there are listing boards. You guys, you don't have to just go to apps. I mean, Geezer knows this. There are listing boards that, just like 18-wheeler truckers, that you can go find jobs on a non-app, where you go find these boards. They're not on apps, and you can get jobs, and they're real jobs. I mean, they're transparent. They pay.
Right.
I see Josh asking, so are you asking me, Josh? So am I saying that from your car to an SUV, it'd be better a car to a cargo van? Absolutely. But can you afford that cargo van?
Right.
Is my thing, I know you're in Philly. You live in a great market to go a size up. I do know that. But you would have to weigh what all comes with that and how, and again, like I think we were kind of hinting at, like, don't go buy a new one.
No,
Go
no.
buy one and then don't plan on selling it. Run it into the ground.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, those are
Now,
just some.
I may trade in mine though, but I certainly like to be in a better equity situation. But but I'm going to get my money's worth out of it, and I am getting my money's worth out of it so far.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, you'd have to do it for a while to understand if that's going to make sense for you. But um, Josh says he doesn't want to brag, but he can afford it. Well, good for you, Josh. Can you afford to loan me some money?
Yeah, that's right. I'm about to say that, man. Hey, man, loan me $5. Loan me $5, man. Yeah, I'll pay you back.
But guys, every week we're going to pound away at this in different angles because I honestly believe and I look into it from the trucking standpoint. I talked to Tom, who I do the Friday show with, who runs the trucking radio station. We talk to truckers on that station who do gig work part-time. Last mile services are not going anywhere. And I doubt that they're going to drop in pay because truckers are starting to not. Truckers came on in a mass way in 2021, and now truckers are starting to fall off a bit. So they're in more need of these last mile people. They're in more need of like me or Geezer or Josh, those of us doing these apps. So get on these apps. There's a ton of them, and what might work in my market or might not work in my market might not work or work in yours. I mean, we know the market to market thing, but with these, it's very much so. I talk to people who crush it in Oregon on freight, but can't find one job on Curri. So, I mean, it's me. I barely see anything on freight, but I got tons on Curri. It is just the market because it's which of these logistic last mile companies landed the best accounts in your town. That's how it works.
Yeah, never thought of it that way, but you're right. Now, with gas prices kind of creeping back up, that's another thing people are going to have to take into consideration, though. But you know what? If you're making the money, gas is just a necessary evil. It's going to hurt,
Yeah,
but it's still a necessary evil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And there's no way you're going to go buy some like Sprinter, like, half electric, half. I mean, you're going to be talking hundreds of thousands. You just can't get too in over your head with these vans either. You got to be careful. So I mean, make like you were saying earlier, make sure you do your research in your market. Make sure that there's a call for Sprinter vans. Go to some of the companies. I mean, this is where I have to say it takes a little more than just signing up and saying, okay, I'm going to do it. Like go, if you work for Curri a little bit, notice you're all the time at Ferguson Plumbing and Sherman-Williams. I know the people at the two locations I pick up from with those. I've asked them, how would I do with a van? And they say, dude, we have endless work. So they've almost like hinted like, hey, just do it. We'll get you work, man. It's like, and that's always a good feeling. So, I mean, just go check around and make sure your market isn't saturated. Even if it is, I would say there's still work out there, more work than the gig apps, but don't get in over your head.
I would say then, if your market, that may be a problem, widen your area, work a radius.
Yeah.
Work a radius of areas. But then again, you may not be willing to do it, but I am willing to work a radius if I have to make what I need to make each day. That's just one of my strategies.
Yeah, I'll give you an example of something I know one person does here that works Curri in Colorado. So I'm an hour from Summit County, which is Breckenridge, Bay Basin, Copper Mountain, a lot of resorts and Summit County. I have a friend who works delivery down here and has a car in Denver. He has a van that he keeps up in Summit County. And he has a friend's house he can stay at. And on the last mile apps, he has the van. Now, he doesn't even work them down here, but he works the delivery apps. And then 2 days a week, he goes up and spends one overnight and works 2 full days in the van up there and crushes it. And then he comes back down here to Denver and does more delivery app stuff so that he doesn't have to count on that delivery app money.
There you go. See, that's
so I mean, there's all kinds of strategies.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. So it's and I saw you asking Tim about freight. Freight is just another one of these. What is the freight app? And it is spelled how Jonathan K is saying it here, like this. But it's just another one that is you know, it's like these other ones. So I mean, in your market, Tim, I know you don't see a ton of Curris, and I know you're on it. Freight might be big for you. I don't know. Adding a trailer like you were talking about would absolutely be big because
Right.
that opens you up to a whole new spectrum of jobs. So but that said, you guys, I'm sure that you all know about Gig Geezer's channel. And if you don't, why don't you? If you don't, and if you don't, get over there and subscribe. He's got great videos on all of this stuff we're talking about. I mean, he drops a video, I think, multiple times a week, and they're always on different topics, but it always comes around to kind of a lot of it is primarily this last mile service stuff. And
yeah, it's transitioned to more so this now.
Yeah, I mean, like I see you still talk about DoorDash and stuff, but I don't believe that's why people are coming to your channel right now.
No, it's really the last mile cargo / spinner van.
Yeah.
And you know, I hey, thanks for coming by. I mean, I did get into this looking to reach a large audience. It just took me longer than what I thought. Hopefully, I guess I am doing something right.
And you're doing something that clearly a lot of people are interested in. Like there was a time when that many views were seen on the videos you're doing on only DoorDash videos. Nobody would watch a freight video. You know what I mean? Or a bungee video. Now you're seeing as many views as like those thousands of views on a bungee or freight video, but you can't get those on a DoorDash sometimes. Because people have kind of given up. Like, I don't care about the videos anymore. I know what DoorDash is.
And there's other stuff to it. I mean, you've got some, as what one guy is pointing out, there's let's just say fraudulence. There's some bullshit with some of the people. And they're misleading people. And again, that's what I've tried to do is, I mean, hey, you can challenge me on what I put out there, but I'd like to think that, you know, I've not been called out for putting out bad information and all. If I don't know something, I don't know it, and I'll tell you I don't know. And if it's something that I can find out and get back with you on it, I will do that as well.
I would even go as far as to say, go ahead and challenge me or challenge everybody if you have a good challenge. But, you know, like with me, I'm going to give you the sources of where I found stuff and you'll know, okay, well, this is what he said. And this is where he said it was opinion. But I would watch it with Geezer too, because he was writing articles and doing news and stuff. I'm pretty sure he's going to be able to back his stories up, guys. So
that's the whole point, man. I mean, as I've tried to tell folks, I'm not going to talk about it unless I've done it.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to the personal stuff, I mean, it serves me no good to just as we used to say, talk from the side of my neck, because there's no greater substitute for experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think that both of us are saying, look, it's not the end of the other apps. They're still there. But if you want to up your game, you don't even have to buy the van out of the gate, but if you want to up your game, at least try some of these last miles. I've been telling people for a long time. I see more people getting interested, and clearly more people are, because look at Geezer's videos with vans. People want to know, okay, what's going on with these, because I need to up my game. So there's a shift happening, and I think that you want to be part of it before. Again, I don't think it'll be oversaturated like these other apps, but before it gets to waiting lists and other things, get on these apps. Try them out. Like I know that most of you guys in here, I know it. I know most of you guys download every other app there is, but you stay away from the last mile ones. You know, it's like, except for the people I know who do last mile in here, but the other ones have told me, I don't know. I to that I ask, why? What don't you know? Just sign up. It's the same as every other app you signed up for.
Right. Actually, what got me into the last mile, this is a true story. I happened to notice a fella Uber driver happened to mention roadie. And I followed up on it. And that's how I got on roadie. That was 2018, man. So, and it was a good move, because roadie was like my go-to app for a good year. And
that's before they were with UPS.
Right. And now roadie has kind of made a comeback with me. I mean, I have, at least in my market or where I have worked, I have made so far this year over 2,500 on roadie. So that's, yeah, of course. Now, altogether, I've made right at about 25,000 this year. So roadie has accounted for about 10% of the money I've made.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with roadie. I just think that they got bought out by a huge company. And like the other apps, they're trying to find a way to whittle that down. How little can we pay?
All right. Now, all right, just for what it's worth, Steve, just since you're talking about the other apps, Dispatch, I've made just south of 1,000 this year. Okay. Bungie, I've made over 500 this year so far. Freight, I've made just south of 400. So those three alone, I've made about 2,000 on those three apps.
Right.
So they're together, they're coming up to about 10% of what I've made so far this year, 8% so far. And that number probably will increase over the year.
And here's my other point. If you weren't on those three, if you didn't have those three apps this year, you know, my guess, I can't say this for sure, but my guess is you wouldn't have that same $2,000.
There's a good chance I wouldn't. Then again,
like if you were just doing DoorDash or other apps in place of those, I'm guessing you wouldn't have quite that money for the hours you put in for those.
Probably not. We'd probably be talking $2,000 earned less.
Yeah. So, I mean, guys, they're all a good start. I know that Amazon Flex and I know that roadie are the two popular ones. That seems to be the last mile apps that everybody knows about. And that's where I kind of say, see, I'm not sure you're fully aware of last mile apps because I don't really consider either of those really last mile apps anymore. You know, they're more staples. They're more mainstream ones that have really doxed the pay a lot, and they don't appreciate the work that's being done. The good companies out there, even though they pay a little different, they appreciate a good driver and a driver who will go long miles or who will do, you know, big weight or things like that. So there is some more to take in with these, but you don't have to accept the big weight ones. Just get on some of these apps, see what you see, and see if you can make some more. And it might not be your whole day. I mean, when I started Curri here, I was lucky to get 1 or 2 orders in a day, 1 or 2 in a day, barely. I mean, sometimes just barely 1, and I'd have to fight for it. Now I'm turning them down all day because I can't take all the orders.
Wow.
You know,
I wish I could say that for myself with Curri in my market. I have seen some orders come across, but basically the last one was like yesterday. It's been a matter of me missing out on them. It says a rush delivery requiring a Sprinter van. The offer was $76.63, but the actual amount, if he would have accepted it on the spot, was like 60 something. Now I don't know how it appears for you though, but those are the type ones that I've seen so far.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's just a matter of timing with me having missed some Curri opportunities, but I'm interested.
But now it's summer or it's spring, but soon it'll be summer and it will change. It will change. It will change big, you know. And I've had people say to me too, like I had somebody recently who got off the waiting list after like 6 months. So there's a hope. There's kind of what happens, you guys. But he got off the waiting list and he said that he just recently, it was this week, he saw his very first Curri order, and he was picking up food for a DoorDash delivery that was going 2 miles to deliver it. And he said, I didn't accept the Curri order, and it was great because I was on this order. I said, listen, if you're picking up the food in your hand and you have to drive 2 miles, grab the Curri order. It's not that dire. It's not, I mean, it's last mile. They want you to get there quick, but it's not like they're not going to be a little patient. There's a little lag room where they're okay with that. You just need to stick and move. You can't finish that and then do another delivery and then get over there.
Hey, stack multiple orders across multiple apps. That's the other thing. Don't limit yourself, man. That's how you make your money.
Yeah.
And with like freight, for example, you've got an hour. You've got a time frame to complete the orders before they'll say in their metrics whether you've been on time or late. But I mean, if you're that close to DoorDash and you got another opportunity, man, you better take it. That's money you just missed.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah. And I just think, I'm here wanting everybody to earn better. People ask me, how are you earning better? I always tell you. So now I'm trying to make a show about how we can earn better. And so here we go. These are the apps, guys. And I'm going to keep onboarding to more of them and trying them. And I'll tell you when I don't like one in my market, and then I'm hoping somebody tells me that it's great in theirs.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that said, I want to thank you for sticking around, Geezer. I know we ran a little over. That seems
That's
to
all
be
right.
a habit I have. I don't
No,
know.
Steve, I say thank you for inviting me.
Mhm.
And maybe it just says that maybe we clicked there and the time went by real fast.
Yeah.
Because if we didn't click, we probably would have been over an hour ago. So
Yeah,
that's a good thing.
absolutely. I mean, there's just a lot to be said, and I think that you and I have a lot of common factors and goals. We both look. We're both out here to make money, and I think all of the rest of you are too. It's just breaking the rhythm and getting into and just trying these. You don't have to just do these, but just try them, because I think you'll find there's more money. Look, if I'm going to be out doing gig work, I don't mind extra carrying or extra work to make twice as much money. If I can come home at the end of the day with twice as much money, I will do extra work. I don't mind coming home with dirt on my face, on my clothes, on me. I don't mind if a little paint spilled on a pair of my jeans. I can get over all that. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, I don't mind that stuff. I want to make twice as much money as I was doing the other apps. Bottom line.
Right.
I'm out here to make money. That's what I want to do. So all of them are still flex apps. You can still work when you want, but I get up at 5 a.m. too to take scheduled runs. I mean, that's another thing to make some of that big money. Are you willing to get up that early? I mean, I know a lot of people might say they are, but are you? Because that's a whole lifestyle change if you're used to working late doing gig apps and then getting up at noon.
Well, I will say this. I know we're trying to get off. It sound like the preacher giving us he gives you 3 times, the preacher. But I am really, by nature, I am not a morning person. I'm a night owl. And given that in another life, I would get up at like 9, 10 o'clock in the day, and nighttime was when I made my money. From like that, from most times between 7 in the evening till 1 in the morning. That's when I made my money as a newspaper reporter, sports reporter. And so doing this has been a big adjustment. Even though I'm making the adjustment, I know that I want to try to sleep late, but I also know that I have to do what I have to do. And so if that means sometimes getting up at 4 in the morning and being on the road by 5 o'clock to be somewhere, I'll do what I have to do, knowing that I'm going to be making a lot more money than I would doing something else.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of times too, guys, like I come home and I do all of the work for the website, the podcast, all these things that I do because I've earned my full day's work by 2 p.m. I mean, I could be out there making more, but I've made more than I could on the other apps by working all night till midnight by 2 p.m., but I'm getting up at 5. So I mean, are you willing to sacrifice a couple things? Are you willing to work a little harder? I guess that's what it comes down to. Are you willing to, I've had people go, wait, you got to lift all this. And to that, I say, already I'm getting a feeling like you're not going to be right for this. If you're already like questioning, wait, I got to lift stuff. It might not be for you.
If not that, driving the miles and all. I joked with someone today about, I guess they've given up on eating their Wheaties or something like that. But, you have to be honest with yourself if you're really cut for it. Are you cut for the physical work if need be? Are you cut for the driving if need be? Nothing really is going to be dropped into your lap. And that's what I think the mistake is. A lot of folk who got into the gig economy, and we're talking about mainly in the years of 2020 and parts of 2021, that came in a golden era where basically money was just thrown at you. You really didn't have to do anything to make that money. Now reality has returned where it was when we're talking 2019 and before, and now you got to work for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to make $250 in 3 hours and maybe drive 30 miles total. but that does not exist anymore.
Right. Yeah. For me to make good money, I am putting miles on my car. That's a fact. But it goes back to what we talked about in the beginning. Miles are great. I don't mind it.
Tax write-off, y'all. Tax write-off. Okay. We said that 2 hours ago that your biggest single deduction is going to be miles. Remember that.
And tax write-off, you guys, and remember taxes are due 1
Tuesday.
week from yesterday.
Tuesday.
Taxes are income, you guys, or miles are income. You can think of it that way. Because you are going to be able to write off things you would not be able to write off, whereas you're going to pay taxes. You can get your taxes down to nothing with miles.
Right. And the whole point is, if you're an independent contractor, if you're doing your taxes correctly, you should have zero taxable income, but you should owe for self-employment tax. But even if you do your taxes correctly, you should be able to minimize the self-employment tax based on your deductions. That is not cheating the system. If you have legitimate deductions, that can happen.
Yeah. Well, guys, keep joining back here every week. Going to have different people on, and some weeks I'm just going to open it up to any of you that want to get on these apps, and let's see if we can't get some questions answered. But we'll keep picking along at these apps. Again, I want to thank you, Geezer, for joining today.
Thanks for inviting me, Steve.
Of anytime, you're always welcome. I want to thank the chat for joining us, and
thank y'all.
And anybody who's watching on the replay, obviously. But other than that, have a great week, y'all. And we will see you back here next week, if not before. And make sure to check out Gig Geezer's channel if you haven't, and subscribe. Because subscribe before he blows up too big. He's already blowing up at some like crazy rates, man. So
I think it could be said that I'm one of the hottest channels out there now. But hey, look, y'all, if it is, it's because y'all have some interest in what's out there, and thank you again.
But let me add this to what he just said. He earned it, though. Again, hard work. He earned that. So I agree. You are one of the hottest channels out there, especially growth-wise and what you're doing, because you're showing people how to literally change the game, or how to change basically how to change your life, because earning 1.5 to twice as much as you are currently earning, that's a life changer. Hey, Gary, what's up? Yeah, you missed it. We're just done. So thanks for showing up. But thanks, guys. And we will see you next time. Until then, have a great week. Be safe and earn smart. Get on some of these apps. Have a good day.
All right.